All right, well, good morning. I want to welcome you all this morning. It's going to be a great day. I'm so excited about this message today. I mean, I'm excited about every message, but today is just going to be fun. Like, that's why I'm excited about it. It's not that it's anything over the top amazing, but it's going to be fun. Like, it's just going to be fun. And so, actually, it is going to be over the top amazing. So, let me just go ahead and put that out there for you. So, really glad that you guys are here today. We're going to be wrapping up our series of Friends and Benefits. And hopefully, over the last several weeks, you guys have been as challenged by, as encouraged by, maybe it's hit you similarly as how it's challenged and encouraged and hit me, right? So I mean, the last several weeks, I've just kind of been looking at how my engagement with Heather, with the girls, with people around us, like how am I engaging the world? How am I engaging my wife? And it's just really, for me, it's just been really challenging. And I hope that it has been for you, and I hope that it has been in a way that it's leading you into a stronger relationship, one with Jesus, and two with your friends and your spouse, and all this fun stuff. And so, usually we kind of go through a recap, but I just want to tell you today that if you need a recap, the videos are available, the handouts are available, everything is available on IndianlandCC.com. Just go to the download page. You can access everything there. The videos are stored on YouTube, and so it doesn't require you to download it, even though it's called the download page. The only thing that downloads is if you get the actual documents that we hand out for small group and your sermon notes and all that fun stuff. So today, we're going to close this thing out, and we're going to talk about something that's very important. Something that's really it's just kind of stupid how important this is for us today. And, it's something that we've kind of touched on throughout this whole series. It's something that it's very personal to all of us. It's something that will, I think, probably kick us right between the eyes, like maybe even more so than the past weeks have. I know for me it has, and the stuff that we're gonna talk about today is probably, very likely, played a huge part in most, if not all, of your relationships. It's probably played a really big part in your marriage relationship, and so. And those of you who are single, this will play a huge part in your marriage relationships. This will play a huge part in your dating relationships. The way you engage people that you feel like maybe God is pointing to you to spend the rest of your life with. These kinds of things that we're going to talk about today are just, they're astronomical. They're so massive. And so as we're kind of digging into this stuff today, I hope that you all are encouraged. I hope that you do see how this kind of plays into our everyday lives, that it's not just about our marriages, but it's about every relationship. And the thing that we're going to be really talking about today, the topic today, is hopes, dreams, and desires. Hopes, dreams, and desires. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that today we're not going to spend a whole bunch of time digging through Scripture. And while that is the case, it does not mean that we are void of scriptural foundation or basis for any of the stuff that we're going to be talking about. Everything that we approach should be from, our whole worldview should be a Christian, biblical worldview, right? So meaning that the Bible should influence and inform the way we see the world. And so as we're kind of talking through stuff today, you're not going to get chapter verse for every little step along the way. We do have a few passages that we'll touch on. But they're all passages that we've kind of dug deep in for this whole series. And so, again, just today, hopefully, this is just going to be good, practical information. And I hope it's something that you receive well, and that it influences you as you kind of step away from this place today. And so, anyway, without further ado, I know you guys are like, what is this thing on the table? And I will tell you that this thing on the table is a box, and just in case it's not anything dead, nor is it anything that's alive. So that's got us in good shape for the most part. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set that right there, and I got to figure out how to do this so that I don't kill myself, kind of transporting myself out and back between things here. But But anyway, so we're going to talk about hopes, dreams, and our desires today. And so I have this box. I already have this other box up here. We're going to kind of just use this as our catch-all as we kind of process through this stuff. But today we're talking about our hopes and our dreams and our desires. And so what I have in this box is a lot of hopes and dreams and desires, things that we kind of think about, things that we kind of process through. And we have all kinds of stuff in here. And I will tell you that Clara made this little house. Apparently her hope and desire is to have a swing attached to her house. We do not currently have a swing attached to our house, so apparently we're letting her down in that regard. But we have, you have a house, right? Your hopes and your desires, right? One of the things that you hope for is the kind of house that you're going to live in, where you're going to live, right? Is it a condo at first? Is it an apartment at first? Like, do you live in a bus? Is that what you live in a bus, right? Maybe it's a van down by the river. Who knows? But I mean, we've got these hopes and desires and these dreams of where we're going to live. And I mean, it's in every stage of life, right? When you move out from your parents' house, or when you get kicked out from your parents' house, whatever your case might be, you have a desire and have a dream for where you're going to move to, right? Where you're going to live. And so we've got our house here, our place of living. Let's see, what else is in here? We have, here's what I want. So everybody wants this. I had money, but then I got robbed by children, and so I don't have any money anymore.
Say it again.
So I got robbed by children. I had money. And for those of you who are children, you're the reason we don't have nice things, because you keep taking our money. But money, right? I mean, you have your hopes and your dreams and your desires of how much money you're going to have, right? And it's kind of funny because Clara and her friends went to Disney World for a school trip a few weeks ago, and she came home and she's like, it's so much more fun when we go to Disney and I have your money to spend. And we're like, oh, okay, now we see how it's going to be. But right, we all have, we all have an approach, we all have a feeling about money, right? How much are we going to earn? How much is the person that I'm married to going to earn? Who's going to stay home? Am I going to stay home? Is she going to stay home? Are we both going to stay home because we just have, trust fund baby? But we all have hopes and dreams and desires about our financial situation, right? How much money we're going to make? We spend a lot of time preparing, right? Right? You go to school, you go to trade school, you go apprentice somewhere, you go to college, you maybe advance beyond just a bachelor's degree or an associate's degree. I mean, we spend a lot of time working towards something that will hopefully end up with us having lots and lots of this, right? So hopes, dreams, and desires. Our money has something to do with that. Let's see, what else? So, yes, we have people. So maybe you're a woman and you have hopes and dreams and desires of finding a guy who wears a tie, right? You see what I did there, guy in the ties? Man, poetry in motion is what is happening here. Yeah, if his pants will fit, yeah. So we have, so if you're female, you're hoping that one day you will find a guy. Right? Maybe this guy's going to help you get into the house that you've always wanted. Maybe he's going to help you get all the money you've ever dreamed and thought about, right? Right? And guys, if you're out there and you're thinking about, what about me? Well, we have a woman here. Maybe you're thinking about, hey, who am I going to marry? Who am I going to engage in life with? Who's going to be the perfect fit for me? Right? We talked a few weeks ago about, we're always looking for Mr. Right or Mrs. Right, right? And then we kind of flip that around and say, well, instead of looking for the right person, maybe we should be the right person. And so, we have our hopes and dreams and desires about who we're going to end up spending our lives with, right? You kind of have your hopes and dreams and desires about what they're going to look like, maybe what they do, and how you engage with each other. Maybe you have, and we just have various children because apparently we've given away a lot of dolls. So it's kind of scrounging around my house. I'm like, okay, we only have a few things, right? They've been adopted out, yes. And so, maybe you two find each other, right? And before long, you start having the conversation. And even before you find each other, right, you're thinking about, how many kids do I want to have? If you grew up in a big family, then maybe you just want to have one kid because you're like, that was chaotic, right? Or maybe if you were an only child, you want multiples, and if the first two are girls, you want to maybe keep trying until you have a boy, right? We said no, we were done at 2 girls because if we had a third girl, I really was going to move out. Like it was. But hopes, dreams, and desires, right? What are we gonna do together, and how are we gonna deal with our kids when we have kids? Do we want kids? Are we gonna adopt kids? Are we gonna foster kids? Like what do children? What role do they play in our lives? And we all have hopes, dreams, and desires about that. And how are we going to discipline them? How are we going to raise them? How are we going to engage with them? What are we going to, I want them to follow in my footsteps and be an All-American at eating pancakes, because that's what I do. Let's be honest. But we have these hopes and dreams and desires about what our kids are going to do, right? We have these hopes and dreams that they're going to be successful, that they're going to find a good person to spend the rest of their lives with. We have these hopes and desires and dreams for them to have stability in life, to have plenty of money to live and to buy a home and to live where they want to live and live in safe environments, right? Hopes, dreams, and desires. And, guys, I'm just going to be honest with you, and ladies. Once we get married, we have hopes and dreams and desires about what our women are going to come to bed in. And it doesn't always align with what we're thinking, right? Heather suggested that I get something a little more racy, but I'm just trying to be honest with y'all, you know what I'm saying? And so, you have hopes and dreams and desires about what your marriage relationship is going to look like. What is intimacy going to look like? Right? And as we learned last week, love and respect, right? As a guy, your definition and idea of intimacy will differ drastically from your wife's idea of intimacy. And so how we engage, how we have our hopes, dreams, and desires that we bring into the relationship in that regard. Maybe your hopes and dreams and desires are to travel all over the world. Right? Well, that requires one of those earlier pieces of the puzzle, right? That money, right? I want to have enough money so that I can just travel all over the place. And maybe you're looking at this, I want to kind of stay in America. Maybe it's looking at this, you're like, yeah, my hope and dream was to not be in the Charlotte area, but to be in the mountains or to be on the coast somewhere, right? Hopes and dreams and desires. Where are we going to live? Where are we going to go in life? We have these different things. Let's see. We had more children here. Let's see. What else? Oh, yes. Who's going to clean the house? You have your hopes and dreams and desires about what kind of environment you're going to live in, right? As a child, as a teenager, you don't really care too much about what your environment looks like until somebody's coming over, and then it's like, oh, I got to clean up my room, right? And then it gets kind of personal then, right? But we have hopes and desires about what our environment's going to look like. Who's going to clean it, right? Who's going to clean it? Am I going to clean it? Is it going to be me doing the laundry? Is it me going to be doing the dusting? Is it her? How's that going to work? So we have our hopes. And these things they don't really get articulated very often, right? You don't sit down on date number 3 and say, so how do you feel about cleaning? Maybe you do. Maybe that's you. But generally, we don't sit down and have that conversation, right? We just sort of have this hope and we have this desire. Maybe it's a dream. I don't know. Maybe not. Time, right? I love those. That's awesome. Time. We have these hopes and dreams and desires about how we're going to spend our time, right? Are we gonna spend our time cleaning and doing chores, or are we gonna spend our time playing golf? Right? Are we gonna spend our time doing other stuff? Like, how are we gonna spend our time? We all have hopes and desires and our dreams, and maybe it's that we spend our time traveling. Right? How are we gonna spend our time together? What does that look like for each one of us? We have a hope and a dream. God, we got just kids running everywhere. Apparently we had a small basketball team. All right. Hopes and dreams and desires about what we're going to drive, because I definitely want a pink convertible. All right? Hopes and dreams and desires. I mean, you know, it's kind of funny because Heather kind of, you know, I don't know that she makes fun of me too much anymore about it, but, you know, I wanted a van pretty much straight out of high school. And you laugh, but the reason why is because I was in music, right? I was into music and performance and all this other stuff, and I actually promoted a youth rally. And the guy that I had playing the band, they rolled up and he had a Ford Aerostar. And he opened up the back of his Ford Aerostar, and like, there was everything. Like a full drum kit, like speakers 3 times the size of what we have, like guitars, keyboard, like, I was amazed. I was like, what? And like they kept pulling stuff out. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have that. Because it's not as ugly as like a 15-passenger van, which I was kind of used to seeing, right? And I mean, it had like, there's 4 seats and there's plenty of room. I mean, you guys see how much stuff we pack into our van and we load up in here, right? So, you know, hopes, dreams, and I wanted a van. I was actually really thankful when my car died and I was able to say, hey, we're getting a van now. Because we were pregnant, right? Well, we weren't, she was. You know, number 2 was on the way. Number 1 was already with us. And having a 4-door sedan, you know, trying to climb in there and deal with the car seats and all that fun stuff. We all have hopes and dreams and desires about what we're going to drive, right? You know, maybe this was your car. And maybe you got forced into the minivan life. Right? Maybe you're like counting the days until you can drop the kids off for the last time, get the sports car, the 2-seater, right? Let the wind blow through whatever you might have left. That's my dream, is to have something left, right? I mean, I'm just saying. You know, we don't necessarily think of it this way, but we have hopes and dreams and desires about the way we're going to fight with each other, the way we're going to engage in conflict with each other. And I know some of you are like, wow, y'all swords in your house? Yeah, we do. Actually, I got plenty of cuts. I can't show them to you on camera, but later we'll talk about it. No, but how do we engage with each other? How do we handle conflict? Right? How do we handle conflict with each other? You know, we have our hopes and dreams, and, you know, we're never going to fight. We're never going to have a disagreement. That's my hope and my dream and my desires. We're never going to have a conflict. Can I just tell you, we were sitting on the couch yesterday, having a good time, eating cheese puffs. It was not on a beanbag chair, but we were still eating. And Heather was talking to me, and I just kind of snapped at her, right? How do we communicate with each other? How do we engage each other? It kind of turned into a thing. And, you know, I had to apologize because I responded, I reacted in a way that I really wanted to, right? I didn't intend to. It just sort of happened. How are we going to engage with each other? How are we going to fight with each other? What does that look like in reality? There's not a good list of this. You know, we have a desire, and again, I apologize. We have a desire for pets in our home, right? What kind of pet? Like, we have a dog, and we have a dog because dogs are awesome, and if you have a cat, that's fine. Meow, right? Get your meow mix. But, you know, we have a desire, and I'm glad Bethany and the kids are back there, you know, because sometimes maybe our pet that we desire is our bunny. You know, maybe it's a dog, maybe it's a cat, maybe it's a fish, right? Who knows? I mean, maybe it's a python. I don't know what you're into. I don't know what your hopes and dreams and desires are when it really comes to your pet life. But we have hopes and dreams and desires. We have these ideas of what we want to have going on in our lives, right? And you know, a lot of times our hopes and dreams and desires are that they're just going to be magical, right? It's going to be everything that I have dreamed about. It's going to be perfect. That everything that I hope and dream and desire in life, my spouse, my friends, when we're hanging out and I want to go and see Garth Brooks with my best friend from high school, and like I'm wanting to have a fun time, and he's just like the way we enjoy things are different, right? My hope and dream and desire was to be, yeehaw, right? And his was to be just like, oh, that's good. That's real good. Oh, that's good. It's real good. Like, all right, cool. We expect things, right? We have these hopes and dreams and desires. Maybe we have hopes and dreams and desires about religion in our relationships. Maybe you grew up in a religious home, you went to church, and your hope and dream and desire is that when you get married and you have kids, that you're in church, that you're actively involved, that your kids are actively involved, that they want to be there. Maybe you grew up in church in a religious home, and the last thing on your mind is, going back to that place. You had such a bad experience with it, like you don't want to have anything to do with it. Your hope and your dream and desire is to never hear about church or Jesus or religion ever again. Hopes and dreams and desires, and we have all these different things, and they're all active in our lives. We come to the table with this box, and we have our hopes and we have our dreams and we have our desires, and man, who wouldn't want to have just a stack of money, right? That's a great hope and a great dream and a great desire. I want to have lots and lots of this, right? That goes in my box. And who doesn't think that having a great spouse, that's a great hope and a dream and a desire, but what does our hope and dream and desire of them daily look like? So we've got that in there. And again we got our multitude of children, because that's kind of what we do. We have children. We can tell which ones are adopted and which ones are fostered and which ones came with the set, right? Because they have the same orange. Who has hair like that? That's just fun, right? But we have our hopes and we have our dreams and our desires, and they're not necessarily bad things, right? We want good things, and we bring all these things into our relationships. And what happens? What happens when you start engaging somebody else? What happens when you come and you say, okay, well here are all my hopes and my dreams and my desires, and I go to hand this to you, and what do you see? You see expectations. Expectations, right? How does that happen? How is it possible that all this good stuff, right? All this good stuff, how can it turn in to an expectation? Clear tape and fabric boxes don't really mix well together. How do our hopes and dreams and desires, how do they become negative? Well, when they become these expectations, and when we hand our hopes and dreams and desires to other people, whether it's just a good friend or whether it's our spouse, maybe it's our children, when we hand our hopes and dreams and desires to them, how do they receive it? How do they receive it? Do my hopes and dreams and desires align with my children's? Do my hopes and dreams and desires align with my wife's? Do they align with my best friend, which is the weirdest thing because he and I are complete opposites. I just don't know how we ever hit it off, but we've been friends since 10th grade, and it's kind of crazy. But how do we, how does this happen? How do we move from hopes and dreams and desires into expectations? And that's kind of where we're going to spend the balance of our time today, is just kind of talking about these things. And And what we need to recognize is that our hopes and dreams and desires have been influenced by our experiences, right? Whether they're good or bad. Whether they're good or bad, right? We have these different experiences in our lives. We have these different things that have happened to us, that we've been engaged in, whatever. And they've influenced us, right? They've influenced how we want to live and how we want to behave with each other. And some of these experiences have shown us, they've shown us that there are things that we need to avoid, right? So some of our experiences have told us that for my hopes and dreams and desires, I'm going to avoid these things. For me to have good hopes and dreams and desires, I need to avoid certain things. And for others, we have these experiences where we're like, okay, I want to replicate, I want to recreate these things. My hopes and dreams, desires are influenced positively, right? I want to do things on Christmas Eve because I loved it at Christmas Eve, being able to open presents because Santa Claus came to our house first, right? So we got to open our presents on Christmas Eve. And all the rest of the world got to open them on Christmas morning. We're like, It was a lot of fun, right? Fond memories, hopes and dreams and desires. Like, it informed how I want to experience life. And see, when we start operating out of our experiences, when we have these things that we want to avoid or these things that we want to recreate, the problem with this is that it transforms our hopes and dreams and desires into those expectations. Right? It transforms them into expectations. I don't want to experience this thing again because I have a history that takes me to a sad place. It takes me to a broken place. It takes me to a hurt place. I want to avoid that. And so that sets up an expectation. I only want to experience Christmas Eve, right? The way that my family has always experienced Christmas Eve. When we start talking about our time, right? How many of you guys had to figure out when you were going to spend time with your family when you got into relationships? Right? Well, we're going to your parents for Thanksgiving. We'll go to my parents for Christmas. And we will do this at Easter and then, whatever. We kind of start divvying out all these things, but we have these expectations, right? With these hopes and dreams and desires. Like I want to continue to experience the things that I love, the way that I love them. And so does the other person. And when we're influenced, when we let our hopes, dreams, and desires kind of be bubbled up out of things that we want to avoid or these things that we want to recreate, then it puts expectations on our relationships. And I want us to understand that an expectation, right? Expectation is a strong belief that something will happen or it will become the case. It will be the case in the near future. An expectation is a strong belief that something's going to happen. I expect to go and have Christmas. I expect for us on Christmas Eve to get the kids together and rally around the tree. Hopes and dreams and desires are not bad things. They're all good things. I look at my box here that I've kind of put together, and I'm like, wow, these are great things. These are great things. Why wouldn't you, Kim? Why wouldn't you want my hopes and dreams and desires? Well, because you have your own. Why don't you share mine? Because I've been walking around with this box. I've been filling it up. Well, so have you. You have your own box. Your life, everything that you've experienced has informed what you hope and what you dream and what you desire your life to be like. When we start handing off our hopes and dreams and desires to other people, and they start feeling it like it's an expectation, that expectation can kind of create this sense of debt. It creates this sense of debt. Like, okay, well, in order for you to be in my life, I owe you these things. Like, I'm indebted to you. I'm indebted to you. And we talked a few weeks ago, right? Covenant versus contractual marriage. When we're expectations, when they create this sense of debt, it feels like a contract, right? Expectations can create a sense of debt, which feels contractual. When we feel like we owe someone, it's not a very good feeling, right? If you feel like, okay, somebody did a solid for me, now I got to do a solid for them. I bought something on my credit card and now I owe this money. Like, how does that feel? And I want to tell you that debt in relationship, what it does, if we have this unchecked expectations and we get into this thing and we feel like we have debt in our relationships with each other, it eliminates unconditional love. It removes. It doesn't give us the ability to have unconditional love because we're always kind of working off our debt, right? We're always working off our debt. What is it? It removes gratitude. When we step outside of unconditional love, when we feel like we're owed something, it removes the gratitude. Let me just kind of give you a quick example. So let's just say that you owe me money, right? You owe me $100. And, I know you owe me $100, you know you owe me $100, and that's great. Whatever. Well, one day you come up to me and you say, hey, Shannon, I've been feeling, bad about, you talking about you're not having time with your wife. Here's $50. Y'all go out and have dinner on me. Like, you intend that as a blessing, but I'm looking at it going, where's the other 50? Where's the other 50? Like, you owe me, right? You owe me $100. Where's the rest of it? Like, I can't receive that because we have this debtor relationship. And if we allow that to extend into our emotional relationships, into our physical relationships, then it never feels like we're actually being gracious for what we're getting. And it never feels like we're being given gratitude for what we're giving. It just feels like everything we do is bringing us back up to par. Like we're never able to be a blessing. We just get back to the starting point. It makes it feel like everything's done out of obligation. Right? I'm obligated. I'm obligated to do these things. And what happens is when we are operating out of this debtor type relationship, when we kind of operate from this expectational relationship, it removes our joy. It removes our hope. It removes our desire. It kills our dreams, right? Owe you eliminates love you. Owe you eliminates love you. When we feel like we're having to operate out of a debtor relationship, when we feel like everything we're doing is to make up for everything that you've already done to us, when we feel like it is just paying it off so that we can get back to level field, it doesn't allow for love to explode. It doesn't allow love to overflow in our relationships. It doesn't allow our hopes and dreams and desires to be fulfilled. And when we're just passing these things off and people receive them as expectations, then it squashes the whole thing, right? Owing you eliminates loving you. If I feel like everything I'm doing is just because I owe you, because I'm obligated to it, that's not unconditional love. That's conditional love. The only way you're going to stay with me is if I'm doing these things for you. Every relationship is like that. It's not just marriage, right? It can be friendships. It can be your friendships. You're not able to engage in healthy relationships if you feel like you're working from a debtor relationship. And it goes back to this idea of contract versus covenant. We need to operate from covenant love. We need to operate from a selfless love. Now, I want to remind us, Jesus in John 13:34, he says, I give you a new command to love one another just as I have loved you. You are also to love one another. So what are they? What does he, what does she owe you? According to this, the answer is nothing. They don't owe you a thing. He doesn't owe you anything. She doesn't owe you anything. You bought dinner. She doesn't owe you anything. She drove to the movie. He doesn't owe you anything. You proposed. She said yes. There's no obligation according to what Jesus says. I give you a new command. Love one another. Just as I have loved you, you are to love one another. How did Jesus love us? Unconditionally. He gave up everything. This is how we keep our hopes and dreams and desires from becoming expectations. We realize that she doesn't owe, that he doesn't owe, that we just don't owe, like they don't owe us anything. There's no obligation. There's nothing that is owed to us. But the flip of that is actually what's true, is that I owe her everything. I owe him everything. To love the way Jesus loves means that we're willing to give up everything for the other person. Doesn't matter what we get back. Paul says it like this in Ephesians 5:2. He says, and walk in love as Christ also loved and gave himself for us. Walk in love as Christ also loved us. Do what Christ did. He gave himself for us. Give yourself to make sure that the hopes and dreams and desires of your spouse, they're being met. That they're not coming across as expectations. Look at how you're giving up of yourself. And I know this is counterintuitive to us, right? But wait a minute. If I'm working from their box, if I'm working on their hopes, dreams, and desires, what about mine? What about my hopes and my dreams and my desires? And again, I go back to, was it last week when we talked about our spouse being a person of goodwill? If our friends are people of goodwill, if we're functioning from a place of goodwill, and you're the first one that puts the sword down, what's likely going to happen? They're going to put their sword down too. It may not happen immediately. There may be some reconciliation. There may be some repairing that needs to be done there. But you got to be the first one to step up and say, you know what? I want to help you see your hopes and dreams and desires fulfilled. And if they're a person of goodwill, then they'll come back and they'll exercise that same action. They'll come back and say, I want to help you see your hopes and dreams and desires be fulfilled. They won't see it as an expectation. It won't be a contractual obligation. It won't be an exchange of goods and services with each other. It will be, I'm just loving you the way that Jesus loves me. My motivation is not to get you to play out of my box. My motivation is to love you, to be honoring to Christ, to love you the way that he loves me. Now this next blank, don't write your spouse's name and friend's name. Actually write your spouse's name. I have to put that disclaimer out there because some of you guys are just going to look up and you're just tracking, right? Write your friends like if you're thinking of somebody that's just like, you know what, I have put some expectations on some people inadvertently. I have hopes and dreams and desires that I've put on them. I've expected them to be a different kind of person. I took her to dinner and I expected something. I drove to the movie and I expected him to do something. Buy me some popcorn. Your spouse doesn't owe you anything. And there, I owe, and write your friend or your spouse's name, write their actual name, don't write same, write the person's name in the blank. I owe them everything. They don't owe me anything. I owe them everything. In order for expectations to not destroy our relationships, we have to remember these things. We have to love and give and not worry about what is given. We have to sacrifice. We have to put things out there and not be concerned about what we're getting in exchange for those things. And like I've said, we must play in the other person's box. We have to play in the other person's box. In order for me to engage Heather in a way that helps her experience hopes and dreams and desires, I have to work from her box. And for her to engage me and make it feel like I'm getting my hopes and dreams and desires, she has to work from my box. And again, we're talking about from the assumption of the person is a person of goodwill, right? Now, if you're married to a jerk, which I don't think any of you are, then this is going to be a little different conversation. Everybody's looking at Philip. I don't know what's up, Philip, but I don't know what's happened here. I don't know what's going down. Lord, we can talk afterwards, Philip. But if we're engaged with people of goodwill, if our friends, if our neighbors, if the guys that we're hanging out with, if the girls that we're hanging out with, if they're people of goodwill, when we engage in those relationships, when we engage in those friendships, then we can work from their box. We can work off of their hopes and dreams and desires. And we can do it without a fear of getting hurt. Without this idea of I'm going to get slammed. I'm going to be taken advantage of. I want to remind us of Paul's other directive in Ephesians 5:21. I put the passage there on your notes. I didn't write it out, and I didn't make the slide for it. But this is the truth, right? And so the whole reason we do this is because of this. It's Ephesians 5:21. It's submitting to one another out of reverence for Christ. We submit and we give and we love. And we submit and we give and we love. We play out of their box. Not because we're hoping that they will return the favor, but we do it because of reverence to Christ. Because as Christians, as believers, as walkers in the life of Christ, we need to look like, reflect like, do like Jesus did. And He told us, love one another the way I've loved you. It's mutual submission. It's that mutual stepping in and reaching into each other's box and working from that box that's going to lead to true success in our marriages. And remember, like Romans 12:10, in the second half of that, it says, outdo one another in showing honor. Outdo one another in showing honor. A race to the back of the line. A key to winning is to put each other first by going first in an effort to be last. Put each other first by going first in an effort to be last. Again, it's taking that first step and not worrying about what you get in return. It's about reaching into their box and realizing what their hope and dream and desire is and working to fulfill that, to meet that. And not with an expectation of getting something back, just because God has called us to do it. It's a race to the back of the line. You guys have heard me say that so many times, you're probably sick of it. It's a race to the back of the line. Right? To love your wives as you love yourself means that you want the very best for her, just like you want the very best for yourself. And that you're willing to do as much to gain that for her as you're willing to do for yourself. So, what's in your box? What's in your box? Do you know what's in your box? Guys, most of us, if our wives ask us, what's in your box? Watch football. With other guys, take my shirt off, paint my chest. Woo! Right? Who knows what's in your box? And I get that. I asked that question as part of our homework for today. Don't have the discussion about it, but just think about what's in your box? Ladies, what's in your box? Do you know what's in your box? Do you know what your hopes and dreams and desires? And let me just tell you, I mentioned this before, like the hopes and dreams and desires that I had when I was 25 and I married my wife are not the same as they are today. Right? And I may have been clear on the front end of our marriage of what these were. And I handed those to her and she accepted them. And whether it felt like expectations or she was playing out of my box and we were working together to achieve these things, those things have changed. They've just changed. Because life changes. When you have kids, when you got youngins running around, your hopes and dreams and desires change. Where you're putting your money changes. Where you live, the kind of car you drive, your hopes and your dreams and your desires change. Just as life changes. And so my question for all of us today is, what's in our box? What is currently my hope and my dream and my desire? Now, I don't want you to completely stress out over this and be like having to come up with these amazing answers and feel like you've got to answer like every one of your hopes and dreams and desires, right? We don't have that kind of time this week, right? Like, it's a moving target sometimes, and what we feel like is a hope and a dream and a desire. Like, golf, man. Golf used to be a hope and a dream and a desire. And I wanted to play when we lived in Atlanta and didn't have kids. And I'd go play anytime I wanted to. I'd go walk 9 holes by myself in the morning before I went to work. Because I loved it. But now, I live 5 minutes from a golf course, and I'm really not sure where my clubs are. They're in the garage. They're in the garage. Right? But, that whole money thing, it's that's part of the problem. So what's in your box? What are your current hopes, dreams, and desires? Guys, girls, I want you to think about that. This afternoon, don't talk about it yet. Just think about it. Like, come up with your answer. This isn't discussion time yet. But then, what I want you to do is sometime later this week, after you've both had time to process through this, and we'll talk a little bit about that tonight in our discussion time, but sometime this week, be intentional and sit down and have the conversation. Sit down and have the conversation. Guys, ask your wife what's in her box. And then stop talking. And listen. And when she says her hopes, dreams, and desires are to go to Paris, and you're like, oh gosh, how are we going to pay for that? Don't even go there. Just listen. Just listen to her. And ladies, when he says that his hopes, dreams, and desires is to have a guy's night every week, don't go, well, what about the kids? Or what about the chores? Or what about just stop. Just listen. This is a time for you to learn what's in each other's boxes. Because right now, you don't know. Right? It's very likely that you don't know. And so, when your spouse comes to you and they hand you unexpressed, right, unverbalized their hopes, desires, and dreams? All you're receiving are their expectations. And what's that going to do? It's going to tear you apart. It tears us apart. Be intentional. Have the conversation after you decide 1 or 2 or 3 things, like whatever that looks like. Maybe you can just come up with one thing that's in your box that is a hope, desire, and dream. And you just write that one thing down and just hang on to that. And then when you guys get together and you talk, then share that one thing. It's fine. I mean, if she rolls up with a notebook full of stuff, I'll pray for you. But listen, right? Listen. If he shows up with a notebook full of stuff, listen. It's the only way. It's the only way, right? It's the only way that we can shift this. Right? We got to put each other first by going first in an effort to be last. Listen. Take notes. Right? When you have this conversation, she does not like red velvet cake. Honest to goodness, we have a story. I knew there was something about my wife regarding red velvet cake. It is that she detests it. One of her early birthdays in our marriage, I got her a red velvet cake. And I was like, oh man, I was on the moon, dude. I was like, yeah, scoring good, getting the points. This is red velvet. Yeah, I did good, yeah. No, I hate red velvet. You're the one that likes red velvet. Oh, yeah, you're right. I remember that now. Hopes, dreams, and desires. We all have them. We all have a box. We've all been putting stuff in our box. Are we communicating what's in our box? Are we sharing our hopes and dreams and desires with each other? Or are we just kind of shoving them in front of our friends and our spouses and saying, here, this is what I expect from you so that you meet my hopes and dreams and desires. And again, we've been functioning, saying that all of this stuff starts and it flows out of a relationship with Jesus. And I want to invite you, if you don't have a relationship with Jesus today is the day. Don't wait on it anymore. Because when you step into a relationship with Jesus, then He fuels you. He gives you the ability to take on this challenge. He gives you the ability to love as He's loved. And He did that for us because of His love for us. Let's pray.